Hi, this is Chris Ball from Mashpee TV. With me today is Senator Dylan Fernandes, our representative, Mashpee and beyond. And he's here today to update us on hot topics in our area. Senator, thanks so much for being here today.
Always a pleasure. Good to be with you.
It's good to see you again. I hope you're enjoying the weather and staying out of the hot sun here. But
it's a little too hot for me, but it's good. It's good. It's good. I actually don't mind the cold. Is that crazy? What I don't like is the lack of sun. Like, as long as it's sunny, I don't really care about the cold. And now it's getting lighter, and we actually get more light back in February than I think any other month. So I think things are trending up, Chris.
Well, it's good. Before we know it, spring and summer will be here, and we'll all be wishing for these quiet moments. So, but anyway, Senator, so you're here today to bring us up to date on what's going on and hot topics. So I'm going to let you take it over.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're looking at a lot of stuff at the state level, and last year we passed a budget. We're going to be taking that budget up again this year. But last year we were able to get the Mashpee Boys and Girls Club some money because they're looking to expand their facilities.
Their teen center.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really nice piece to pitch into the local community, expand options for kids here, especially teens. That's such a tough age to be on the Cape, where there's not a whole lot going on. Frankly, I grew up here, so it's good to give kids, especially in that age bracket, more things to do. But yeah, at the state level, and really my focus as the senator for Falmouth, Mashpee, Bourne, and Sandwich on the Cape side, and then over the bridge, 4 towns in Plymouth County, including Plymouth as well, is to really focus in on how do we make our community a more affordable place to live, and this is such an important issue for me and my age group, because of the people leaving this area and leaving the state. It's actually people 25 to 40 who are leaving because they can't afford a house and they can't afford childcare. And so last session in the legislature, we passed a piece of legislation that's specific to the Cape and Islands called the Seasonal Communities Designation. And this is something that the Cape and Islands is a part of, and then some towns out in the Berkshires, way out in Western Mass, they qualify as well. But basically, what we did is carve out specific programs for communities that experience a lot of seasonality due to being a tourist destination and having a seasonal workforce. These communities, which is so true of the Cape and Islands, our job market and salaries are completely misaligned with the housing market, because on the housing market you're competing with really an international group of people that want to be here. It's such a hot and high housing market. And so what we did is, and the entire Cape and Islands delegation supported this, was put forward this designation that now says that communities on the Cape and Islands, they can build housing and have housing that's specifically for their workforce. So housing for teachers, housing for firefighters, housing for police officers. You probably can make a pitch for housing for local public access TV employees as a part of this as well.
Will you fit that in there for us?
I think it actually could be in there, because we made it loose, a loose enough definition, and this is quasi-municipal, so I think you can make a case. There's pieces in there on affordable or on accessory dwelling units by right, and then also our carve out for the Cape and Islands is small tiny homes by right as well. And then we lowered, put in a component on this to lower taxes too. So we made the residential tax exemption rate, the amount that people who live here year-round can be exempt on their taxes, we doubled it from the previous rate allowed. And so now in your town, you can have a much higher residential tax exemption, which means that you can have much lower taxes should the community vote on it and decide on it for local year-round residents. And
So what did it go to? Can I interject and ask? You said you doubled it?
yeah, so we doubled it. So now I believe you can go up to 50%,
Okay.
which was like considerably higher than before. And now, so you can lower residential property tax rates for year-round residents.
Because I know in Mashpee we started at 5 and now it's up to 20%.
Yeah.
And I believe, I don't think they have any in Falmouth from what
They
I
don't.
was recently told.
Yeah, they don't, and they should. They should in Falmouth. It's a little crazy to me that they put so much of a burden on the year-round residents, and so they should take a look at it. And I know Falmouth is actively taking a look at it, and many towns on the Cape already have this. I think Falmouth's actually an outlier, but many communities actually already have this, and now they could go even further in offering tax relief to year-round residents. And that's really important, especially in a place where people have seen their home values really, skyrocket. And for people who grew up here, lived here, this is a way to keep year-round residents in their homes, and especially for our seniors on fixed income, a really important piece that we carved out specifically for our region to help not only support more housing being built, but also make housing more affordable for those who are experiencing high costs that already have a home.
Well, you speak of the, exemption, not only what you already spoke towards on that, but, like in Mashpee, we're putting up, I think it's now $32 million police station. We're probably going to be up around $100 million before too long on sewering. Well, they've gotten plenty of grants, plenty of support on that, but our taxes are still going up. At least the exemption, will stay somewhat, if not less, will at least be equal to what we're paying now in the future.
Yeah, that's right. And so Mashpee could take a look at this, and they could, lower residential taxes as well. An important part about this is when the legislation was first passed, it didn't include Mashpee, it didn't include Bourne, didn't include Sandwich, didn't include Falmouth. And I don't think it included Barnstable either, actually, for that matter. And so we led an effort with the Housing and Livable Community Secretariat, the kind of secretary in charge of overseeing this program, to make sure that these communities were included. And so we led, a letter from the delegation. We had meetings with the Secretariat, and as they were finalizing the regulations from this new thing that was created, it was announced just in December that they are included. The entire Upper Cape is now included in it. So we get the same, housing options and affordability options that the rest of the region got, and I think that's really important. One, because we, of course, experience a lot of seasonality here and a tourism workforce here, but also because the Cape is really, as much as we have our distinct towns, it's really one region in terms of an affordability, lens with when it comes to housing. So I was really proud that we were able to get Mashpee included, and now it's up to Mashpee Select Board, Town Meeting, to decide whether they want to take on this designation. So they'll ultimately decide. Each town will decide at the local level, but now because of our effort at the state level, they have this option.
That's great. That's
it is great. It is great.
I'll take less taxes any day.
Not bad. And then on the wastewater piece, Mashpee for so long didn't do anything, right, on wastewater, and now it's finally, caught up to the town. And then the Cape-wide, some towns had done a lot for wastewater. Other towns hadn't done much. Provincetown had done a ton of sewering. Falmouth put in a big wastewater treatment plant. Other towns had really neglected it for years and years and years. And so, water quality is so important here. Not only It's because it's why, you and I love living here, because of, we love our pristine water. We love how beautiful it is. And I think all of us who live here are, have this kind of fundamental attraction to the ocean. At least I do. And we want to make sure it's clean and preserved for future generations. That really hasn't been done on the Cape for a while, and we've experienced some really poor water quality, especially in our ponds. And then in the summer, beaches get shut down on the Cape every year because of poor water quality. And all of this comes down to, or I should say the vast majority of this comes down to, like what we're doing with our wastewater. And so what we did a few years ago is we created the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, and this raises over $1 billion in the next 30 years for money raised on Cape, stays on Cape, to help the various towns deal with their wastewater issues. And so for a town like Mashpee, it can apply and get new funding, and it has been successful in that, and getting new funding for wastewater projects. And other towns that have built infrastructure, they can get some funding for building more, or funding for some of the loans that they took out to build it. But it's been really successful in another way that we're saving taxpayers a ton of money, because if this wasn't there, it would be all borne on the back of Mashpee, or name the town on the Cape, taxpayers. And so you'd be paying a lot more in assessments for betterments.
We need 100% tax abatement.
Yeah, no, it's
quite,
some of these, and especially, sewering pipes and pumps that work quite well for areas that are dense are also quite expensive. And so there's a large price tag for some of these projects. And this Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, we created, bipartisan support for it, has really gone a long way, and offering a good deal of the share of money, but they're still, these are still quite expensive projects.
Well, I know that I was in phase 1 in Mashpee, so I'm hooked up to the sewer.
That's
but
nice.
I took a look at it, and I got steered towards the Barnstable Aqua Fund. And I tell people all the time, listen, it's so easy. I mean, I literally went online on Monday and filled out the form, and I needed my deed number and my plot number and all that, so I didn't finish it till Tuesday.
Yeah.
By Wednesday, I was approved.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
My contractor was approved, and from there, I did nothing. And to do mine was, I'll say it was $12,000.
Yeah.
My first payment was $99. I think I'm down to $89 now, and it just keeps going down, and it's like,
Wow.
This is a no-brainer, folks.
Yeah, no, that's a good deal. And then we also, and for people who have septic tanks, we tripled the septic tank tax credit too. So,
Right.
It used to be you get $6,000 back. Now you get up to $18,000 back, and you can draw that out over, I forget if it's 3 years or 5 years.
I believe it's 5, because
I think that's right.
I'm able to write off up to 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. And so the tripling, that's a lot of money back into people's hands. And by the way, this is a statewide initiative, but in terms of concentration of septic tanks, it's like this is really a Cape specific issue in terms of, no other place in the Commonwealth has the amount of septic tanks that we do. And so this is a really important tax credit that we were able to get for our region. And then, so you get now $18,000 back, and then you can get a 0 interest loan to pay for the rest. And so it turns what is a really large expense still into, it's still a large expense, but you get you triple the money you get back, and then, a free money, 0 interest loan on top of that really helps pay for it over a long period of time.
Well, the other thing that people were like, well, now we have to pay a usage fee for the sewers. Well, I was like, all right, I pump my septic tank every year, just as a matter of course. So, you know, it was up to $1,000 last year. Based on the rates I've been quoted, I don't think I'm going to hit that $1,000 just paying for the usage. So even if it's a trade-off, I look at the future generations are going to have clean water, cleaner water than we have now. Hopefully, in 20 years, we'll see water back to the way I remember it when I was a kid 60 years ago. So.
Yeah, and I think we owe it to future generations. I also, you know, it's also the biggest driver of our entire economy, too. So people come here, you know, our tourism-based economy is built upon the amount of economic development and activity that we get from people who come here because of our beaches and because of our waterways. And so when those get shut down because of algae blooms and water pollution, that's really harmful not only to our economy, but how we market ourselves as an entire region. So not only personally, you know, do I want to keep water clean because I love experiencing it, and because I, you know, think we all have an obligation to keep it clean for future generations, but just from an economic perspective, it makes really good financial sense to be cleaning up our water because that's what drives our economy.
Well, when you have the New York Times putting articles about our toxic stew in the Mashpee River and some of our ponds, it's just bad advertisement.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, aren't we mandated to reach certain nitrogen levels to 75% of that by, I think it's 20 years from now? So we're, you know, not only do we want it, but we're also sort of all mandated to get it done.
Yeah, there's a few yeah, I mean, the Conservation Law Foundation won a lawsuit years ago, right, where, you know, now they have these like 208 plans, water management plans. Then on top of that, the state has designated watersheds, right? And then if you're a home in a watershed where, you know, your septic is leaching into the water, causing more nitrification, eutrophication, which is just another way of saying really algae blooms, you have to have, you know, tighter controls around how much nitrogen is leaching out. And so, you know, that's good because it's protecting our water, but it's a challenge because it's also expensive. And so that's where the tripling of the septic tax credit comes in to really help with that. That's where the zero interest loans come in. And that's where us funding this Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund also helps as well. And so it's not just, you know, hey, we're going to mandate that you do this thing, but also, you know, we're going to, from the state side, you know, work to put forward programs that help make it more affordable for people.
That's all great, and it helps people do the right thing. I mean, I think pretty much everybody wants to do the right thing, but, you know, as you get into, we have an older demographic, and people, you know, living on fixed incomes, they're like, oh my God, how am I going to afford this?
Yeah. Oh, I got it. And the Cape's, you know, the Cape has always, you know, it's been, you look back at news stories from like 30, 40 years ago, and a lot of it is complaining about the affordability. So there's always been affordable issues here. I think they've become a lot more pronounced since the pandemic, and I think we'll always have them. And so I think the question is more, you know, given that this is a very desirable area, how do we sustain community in a way that, you know, the people that need to make these communities run, you know, the teachers, firefighters, police officers, you name it, are able to call this community a home too. And so I think that's where it comes in, you know, some of the issues around affordable housing and building that in a smart way to give people who work here the ability to live here. Because you don't want to become a, you know, a Nantucket or a Martha's Vineyard where it's just so incredibly unaffordable that they can't find anyone to, have a really struggle to find school teachers and the like. And even doctors over there are having a hard time finding a place to live. So we know what will be coming, looking at the islands as bellwethers if we don't address it. And so this is why we're taking really proactive measures now to try to get ahead of it.
Well, that's great to hear. So besides affordable housing, wastewater, which are tied in, and to me, what you talked about the kids at the Boys and Girls Club, is we see more families leave and less kids here. It's important to find things for them also to keep families here. What other things you have on your radar?
Well, we're doing a fair amount of initiatives at the state level. We're looking at energy affordability, and we're going to take up some energy affordability legislation to hopefully lower costs on utility bills.
Yeah, if you see the lights go out, you know why.
Yeah, no, they're getting quite expensive. So we have our own legislation on that to lower costs, give people money back from some of the fees that they're experiencing. We're probably going to be taking that up in the next few weeks. So more to come on that. But some of the things we've done recently, one was around data privacy protection. So we passed really the most comprehensive Data Privacy Act in the country through the Massachusetts Senate. This is a really important piece because, I don't know what people's awareness of this is, but basically these large data companies are taking all your personal data, aggregating it, and then selling it for profit to other companies, or using it themselves to, drive prices up for you, send you specific types of advertisement, and really create an online profile for you based upon where they might be able to price gouge you. And you actually see this in a lot of different industries. And so basically, they're using your own personal data, selling it for their own profit, and then using it to make a profit off of you. And we see this everywhere. I'm sure we've all experienced this one way or another. And so what we did is a few different things, but one of the things we said is that these companies that are taking your personal data for some service that you signed up for, they can only take the data relevant to you that is relevant to the service that you're getting. So if you're
From them.
Yes, yeah. So they can't, just because you sign up for this one service doesn't mean they can take all of your personal data that's out there. It has to be only relevant to the product and service that you're getting, and it can't share that data unless it's relevant to the product and service that you're getting. So this is a concept basically just called data minimization. So it just minimizes the amount of data companies can collect from you. And then we also say that you shouldn't have to give up all your personal data to access, services. So sometimes you go online, click on a website, and you have to consent to giving up all your personal data just to be able to enter into the website. And so these are they're basically gated websites unless you consent to giving up, a lot of your personal data. We say you can't do that anymore. People shouldn't have to give up their personal data in Massachusetts just to access a service. And then we put guardrails, and I had an amendment on this, on data sharing between companies. So we make sure that they can't, share your data automatically with other companies if that company has, been purchased recently. So there's a lot there. It's kind of complicated stuff, but basically we want to protect people's personal data. We want to protect and be on the lookout for the use of personal data to charge people more for products. And ultimately, we want to stop people in Massachusetts from being exploited from these big data companies, which are now the largest companies on the planet.
Really?
These are all the biggest, the biggest companies on the planet. Their market is just your personal data. So it used to be oil companies, it used to be the Exxon, you name it, of the world. Now all the largest companies on the planet are data companies, that just aggregate and use your personal data.
Makes sense, but
Yeah, no, it's quite
scary,
lucrative business.
but it makes sense.
Yeah. So we want to rein that in, and then I have legislation that takes a look at social media. I think social media companies are doing a lot of harm to everyone. I experience it in my own life, but the data is pretty clear on the harm being done to children with their body image, with their their mental health. And so what we do is, and one thing that we're looking at doing is charging these companies a fee, the big social media companies a fee, and having part of that money go towards after school activities and enrichment, so that kids aren't just sitting on their phone, but they're out being active with their peers after school, and then also putting some of that money towards universal pre-K, which is something we don't have in Massachusetts yet, but need to work towards, so that people aren't having to spend boatloads of money for early education care and child care and the like. So we're taking a look at that. That's something that we're going to be pushing. I think these companies are doing a lot of harm to society, and then more specifically to kids. And the data there is actually really compelling that's those are some of the effects. So we want to raise some money from those negative effects, and then put them into positive programs for kids.
Sounds good. Sounds real good. So we're getting to about the end of our time. Any last thoughts? Anything that's another hot topic you want to bring up?
I would just let people know that we're here to serve them. It's an honor to serve Mashpee. I love this community, and that our office, we do a lot of legislation, but then we also do a lot of constituent help. And so last year, I think it was over 540 people reached out for help with something before the state, whether that was unemployment, health insurance related issues, getting permits that they needed that were at the state level, getting licenses that they needed at the state level. And we've helped them accomplish that thing that they wanted to do. In some cases, that's getting them money that they're owed and the like. It's really important for paying the bills. So I just say, reach out to our office, reach out to me. All of our email and phone number is just Google Dylan Fernandes. That's the first things that pop up, and we're always here to serve and help.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming today and giving us some great updates, and continue the good work. We enjoy having you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have me anytime.
So folks, that's our wrap for another Mashpee Update. This is Chris Ball signing off, and we'll see you next time.